right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. Good even fall to one and more. This is the warp speed. Lieutenant Commander's log, stardate 11006.8. And I do bid you do well. I hope you are well of health and sane of mind. But if you aren't, well, welcome to the club. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very shameful day for the sport of boxing. And I'm sure that everybody here, the 2, 3 listeners that have hopped on, Mr. Vince Vargas being one of them, good even fall to you, Mr. Vince Vargas. You're wrong. I'm always wrong. But I'm sure that everybody here is already caught up to the news of the day, right? That apparently Mr. Oscar De La Hoya, the golden boy himself, is a I ain't gonna say that. I will never say those words to anybody, especially under the anonymity that is provided to me by the distance created by this connectivity, the internet. If I cannot call a man by any name in real life, shame on me if I should dare say something like that through the connected world of the internet. But somebody in the world feels so strongly about Oscar De La Hoya that he would call him one of the most offensive terms that you can say to another man if you're a Spanish speaking individual. He called them the equivalent, the exact definition interpreted in English, FA something something OT. He called him a homosexual, but just in very vulgar words. I wanted to talk about that, but I wanted to bring up the title of today's show. It's called Unbecoming. Now you may be asking yourself, what exactly does unbecoming mean? Well, Merriam-Webster, which is my favorite dictionary, but also Oxford, defines it something to the effect that it is not befitting or appropriate, and seemingly unfitting behavior. Not fitting or appropriate behavior. You're probably asking, not fitting whom? Well, not fitting a person that's supposed to represent the highest echelons in the sport of boxing, the undisputed cash cow in the world of organized violence, Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan. It is unbecoming of him to use those kind of words against a man that helped build his career and make him a superstar, a global sensation, a man who is partly responsible, and I do say partly responsible, for his success in the maneuvering in our beautiful sport, Mr. Oscar De La Hoya. He showed a very ungrateful, offensive demeanor towards that man who made him a multi-millionaire, who led him to a career that's easily gonna be a shoe-in Hall of Fame once he retires 2 or 3 years from the sport. He called him a vulgar term used to describe the promiscuous homosexual male. It doesn't sit well with me. He accused the Golden Boy of being a cheat and a thief that does not pay his fighters what he has to pay them via terms of contract. Now, I'm sure that all of us here have grown up watching Golden Boy fight. He's one of the greatest fighters that's ever lived. I think he was a fourth division champion, similar to Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan. He represented the grand nation of the United States in the Olympics. The Golden Boy, if I'm not mistaken, he won gold. That's why it's in the name. He made a lot of people handsomely wealthy, and he was the most important passer of the torch that the sport of boxing has ever had. Anybody that beat Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan's promoter, former promoter, whoever beat that guy, penciled their name and the annals of boxing's history. They became stars themselves. Manny Pacquiao, Bernard Hopkins, all those fighters that beat Golden Boy, they had great careers afterwards. He was the perfect passer of the torch. We have not had anybody pass the torch like Golden Boy has. And why is it significant when somebody passes the torch? Well, it's not just easy as just beating a man and then all of a sudden the claim and the recognition and the fame and the wealth comes and pursues it. No. Because Jordan Isugas didn't get the torch passed when he retired Manny Pacquiao. Did he? No. Mayweather, you could say, was the last person that ever passed the torch, but not by losing. And in that sense, really, you must give a lot of respect to Canelo, because he was defeated at the hands of Floyd Money Mayweather, the former Pretty Boy, and he was able to rebound from that and now become one of the wealthiest athletes in the world. Right? I have respect for both of these men. But there is so much that this story, because that's really what it is, a story, because that's what boxing offers. Stories of every fighter and how they apply to the world at large. This storyline that's being created has been repeated time and time again. The Mexican versus the Mexican. The brown man versus the brown man, in division and in resentment and in hatred. This is not new. Now, I've looked at a lot of the episodes that I have conducted Warp Speed, along with my participation in the Homie Ricky podcast. And I think we are fair. Not only to our people, but to people of all nations, colors, creeds, races. That comes from getting your butt beat enough by all these people and then beating their butt on a couple of occasions. You come to respect your foe. And then you look past the fact that there are people that differ from you because of race, color, nationality, creed. And you respect them for their work because you respect yourself. If they could beat you and you know what you're worth, then you have to value those individuals. You don't have to feel good about it, but you have to value those individuals. Long story short, one of the things that I have noticed is that I am particularly tough on my own people. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I do not like us. And I do say that as a Chicano, a Mexican American, an American of American descent and of lineage, proud of both cultures. But I say that because I know that we can be better. I say that because I know that we are people that can achieve some of the greatest things in the world. Our ingenuity, our hard work, our valor, our culture is supreme. And all I want from people that look like me and act like me is excellence. Right? But what happened today was very shameful for people like myself. Now, before we go on, let's just address our listeners because they are very important. In fact, the most important thing about this here broadcast, Life with Warp Speed, is to listeners because I, for one, can tell you right off the bat, I don't have answers for you. I have questions. And I encourage you to provide me with your opinions, what you consider to be answers, because I need to learn from you. I do not trust my mental faculties. I do not trust my memory. I cannot trust my formulation of thought. And I'm also a bit lazy when it comes to that sense. I will eventually die from Parkinson's disease and or dementia. I know this. But these kind of interactions, especially when you guys engage me or provide me your opinions, those things matter to me because they develop memories and help me formulate ideas, sort of like putting a puzzle together or solving a Sudoku puzzle. Mr. Vince Vargas, good even fall to you. Wow, news to me. Who did he say that to? Well, Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, he called the Golden Boy, a very vulgar term that I will not dare say myself, out of respect. El Pachuco at Vince Vargas at Warp Speed. Saludos. It's great that you went live. If you have time, I'm interested in your thoughts in the recent chaos in the boxing world. Yeah, let's talk about it. But I'm also more interested in your opinion, El Pachuco, because I don't like to provide too many opinions just due to the fact that I've been so wrong and I admit it that I really do distress myself. And besides, I don't really care for my opinions. I'm more interested in observing and studying from others. That's really what I'm very interested in. Pachuco, sixth division champion. Well, there you go, Pachuco. Even greater, right? Sixth division champion. Wow, incredible. Golden Boy really was the man. Adimeri says, I think for the first time, reality hit Mugia. Did you see his look when Canelo and ODLH squared up? Um, yeah, yeah, I did. And I think Mugia is in some kind of a trap, right? Where now he knows what the stakes are. And unfortunately for Mugia, it almost seems like the stakes are greater, those between Golden Boy and Canelo, than the one stake that he's facing between himself and Canelo. Because now really Munguia has almost taken a step back to the controversies between these two men and their former professional business related past. Munguia is taking a step back, and hopefully that is the advantage that Munguia can ride off into the distance with, while Canelo's being distracted by his resentment and obviously ire and hatred for his former promoter. Maybe that is enough to cloud his mind state, and that fog, maybe Mugia can exploit that. I sure hope so, because I will say one thing. The words that Canelo said about Golden Boy, I would never say to any man. And in fact, I'll tell you a little story about when I did say something to that. Not exactly that word, but something very similar to that to a man. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. I admit it was like, he was like, I have to fight this guy. Yeah, yeah, like, oh, this beast, this killer right here who's full of anger. El Pachuco salutes, Adimeti cheers. Munguia's defense was so bad he couldn't get out of the chair. LOL. Man, you crack me up, Medi. The Mexican G says disappointing news came out today. Ryan Garcia is a cheater. Well, that is news. I just barely became apprised of that. The Mexican, and thank you very much for coming on here this live. Thank you very much for bringing that up to my attention. I wasn't really going to address it just due to the fact that I really feel so horrible about what transpired today between Canelo and Golden Boy that I don't know what else to say, what else to bring up to your guys' attention, right? I'm trying to just speak to those people that may not be as acculturated as myself, and the way that people such as myself, men who like to treat others with respect, like El Pachuco states, like to live by the golden rule, how we would react if somebody ever uttered those terms in our direction, right? And let's just say words like those can have serious, even deadly consequences. But yeah, I heard about it from the homie Ricky. I was at a little league game, the Mexican, and he called me and he told me Ryan is a cheater. And I said, well, yeah, of course, we know that, right? He isn't a man of his word. He used his advantage, his physical weight advantage over his former nemesis. And he goes, no, 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 no. A and B samples. And I was like, well, guess what? Ryan already cashed in on $40 million. What's the worst that could happen? He gets chastised by the world of boxing. What happens then? We forget about it, live and forget. In the meantime, he cashes in on those 40 millions, buys some stock, flips it into another 10 million, and he laughs all the way to the bank and says, suckers. Really what's going to happen if his B sample comes out positive? What? Be suspended for a year or two? Isn't that really what happened when he pleaded to have mental health issues? When he wanted to ride out the end of his Golden Boy contract? He thought by just sitting out, he'd be able to term out on that contract. And then Golden Boy said, nah, nah, nah. No, 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 mijito, come over here. What's really going to happen? It's disappointing, yes. But it was disappointing from the moment that he decided to forego his bond, his word, and his promise on this John Hancock on paper that said, I will make 140 and fight you, Devin the Dream Haney. And when he forfeited that, from that moment, it was a disappointment. The fact that he won convincingly, and he just couldn't shed 3 pounds in order to become a 140-pound champion against an undisputed fighter, that was a disappointment already as it was. El Pachuco salutes the Mexican. Saludos. I'm trying to set up Brian. Is what Adimari says. And maybe he tested positive, bro. He's a cheater. I don't want to believe it, but it's true. He still has 10 days to submit a sample to counter the claim. Yeah. Y'all think about it. Ref was in favor of Haney. Judge that scored it 112 was in Haney's favor. Victor Conte, who's connected to Vada, is well connected with the Haneys. Yeah. But maybe he needed all those advantages out of Medi. Because again, he was hepped up on goofballs, right? Mr. Vince Vargas says, so Ryan keeps the money. Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah. He kept our money, Mr. Vargas. In fact, he should probably return it for being a cheat. I'm just kidding, But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a little story, right? About what it means to be unbecoming. And again, To be unbecoming means to not display appropriate and fitting conduct or behavior. And when you say that about somebody like a undisputed champion, you're supposed to think, how is an undisputed champion supposed to conduct themselves, right? Is somebody like Alvarez supposed to conduct himself like this at this juncture, being one of the wealthiest individuals, rubbing elbows with men that manage hedge funds? Do you guys think that these hedge fund butcher venture capitalists, which I'm sure Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan is, now that he's into making alcoholic beverages and buying real estate and investments, you think they speak like Canelo Alvarez? And even if they do, would they speak like that in public, say terms like that, like how we express themselves in front of millions live today? I doubt it. Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, El Canelo, conducted himself like a commoner, like an uneducated, poor individual, right? And we know he's not. He's very educated in more ways than one. And he's not poor. Now, you may have noticed that I said that the other part of the title was the fact that Unbecoming and Little League. And you're probably saying, Little League baseball, what does this have to do with the sport of boxing? Well, let me tell you guys something. What happened today, right? Today, my son had a Little League baseball game. My 10-year-old son, he plays Little League baseball and he plays flag football. He's a busybody. Every day, just about, he's always practicing and doing his reps and just doing all kinds of stuff to become an athletic, responsible, fit individual. And that one day of the week that he doesn't have anything going on, best be assured that I take him out to practice. Now, today we had a game, and we're a team that has about 7 wins, 5 losses, right? And we faced off against a team that had, I don't know, 10 wins and 1 loss, actually, right? So when we walked into this field, we knew that we were the underdogs. In fact, our team is called the bench warmers. If you guys know what a bench warmer is, it's somebody that has so few interactions in athletics that he basically just keeps the bench warm. He sits there for the longest of time. He has no talent. And I think the bench warmers were a team that came out in some kind of movie dedicated to Little League sports, right? Maybe it was even called the bench warmers, I'm sure. But nonetheless, we faced off this team, one of the best teams in our league. And everything went against the principles of Little League baseball. We have a pledge that we start off the games with that talks about how our Little League players will play fair, they treat their opponent with respect, they will do well for their communities and their country, and they will have fun playing ball. We recite this pledge after we salute the flag of the United States of America. In fact, that's one of my favorite things about the sport of baseball. They still actually played the national anthem. Now, the first thing that we start off in the game is basically reminding our kids how proper conduct is of the utmost importance, because we're here to have fun and we're here to develop a community. But that's not what happened today, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I feared that we were going to start throwing punches. between us adults from one team to the other. Why? Because the team that we faced was undefeated. They are from a wealthier area of the city of Salinas, California. And because, God forbid, the umpire, Blue, he's a human and imperfect, right? Apparently, the ump made a couple of plays that were questionable. And the opposing team started getting very vocal about it. And they started to express their displeasure with some of the ump's calls. That was a strike, ump. And he was like, whoa, I never had this happen. Now, the pitcher, it all started when this happened. The pitcher that was throwing against our kids, he was throwing his pitches, and the ump called it a ball. And the pitcher, who's no more than 10 guys, our ump was maybe 55, 60. The 10-year-old, when the guy would call a ball, he would shrug his shoulders and point at the ref with open arms, like saying, what was that? And the ump warned him. He looked at him, he said, what? And the player didn't do nothing. He pitched again, and he would pitch again, strikes and balls. And then when there was another one that the pitcher thought was a strike, that the ump called a ball, the pitcher would shrug his shoulders and point to him like saying, what was that? That was a strike. And in fact, he actually said that was a strike. Now you got to understand something, guys. This is a 10-year-old kid talking to an adult individual who's in control of the game, whose job is the hardest. He has to try to get so many things right in this game from his vantage point. And this little kid is trying to tell him what to do and pointing out what he perceives to be mistakes. So of course, what happens is the ump tries to implement the rule that he is the boss, and he tells the pitcher, stop doing that. Stop doing that. And the kid is just getting frustrated, like fuming and kicking dust. And the ump warns him again, stop doing that. And you know what happened, guys? The mother of the kid, who's acting like a brat, being disrespectful to the ump, she screams out from the bleachers, and she says, stop talking to him, he's just a kid. And the ump looks at her like, what is going on here? In our side, we're looking at each other like, what's going on? What's going on? Because everything is happening so fast, right? And then the ump tells the mother, lady, the kid is being disrespectful, I'm doing my job. And she goes on and blabs something out, and we're just looking at each other incredulously and asking, what is going on? Why are these people acting like this? So the game continues. Now someone else starts it off. The ball is thrown. It's a strike. And a male, an adult male, must have been about in his 50s, 60s. He tells the ref, that's a ball, right, Blue? But he called it a strike. And then another pitch is thrown, and it's a strike. And the guy's just contradicting everything that he says. He says, that's a ball, right, Blue? He throws another one. That one was a ball. And then this guy says, are you sure that wasn't a strike, Blue? And the reason they're called blue is because they wear a blue shirt to tuck it in. And the guy looks at him and goes, "You, I want you out of here." And the guy looks at him like, "I ain't going nowhere." And the blue says, "I want you out of here now." And the guy looks at everybody like, "Are we gonna let this guy talk to me like this?" And everybody's just quiet. And then you have to understand one thing, guys. The coaches from the teams are supposed to be the only ones who are supposed to be having these kind of interactions with the ump and their players. Any other place, that ump, he's the boss, right? Now, after all of this commotion is going on, finally, the main trainer for this team that we're facing against, he tells the people, guys, be quiet. We're going to get forfeited. That means they're going to lose the game. At a moment that we're ahead, we had scored 4. They had barely started the game. It was 4-0. And the guy still doesn't want to get off. And he tells him once again, "I want you out of here now, or I'm not gonna ump this game." And that's when the guy decides to just get up. And he's this hulking man, right? He's this big, hulky man. He's probably never been talked to like that. And he gets his stuff, throws on his backpacks, starts trampling off of the field, off of the open field, right? He starts going around, and he starts walking to his car, and everybody's just quiet and just looking at this guy walk off. And the other people are just like harumphing, like harumph, with their arms crossed, like, did the ump just kick out one of our people in the little league game, right? And blue is just like, I've never experienced something like this. He says, "I've played college football, college baseball. I've played high school. I've played little league. I've umped, because not refed, I've umped for every single division of baseball. And I've never seen this in a little league game. I've seen it in professionals. I've seen it in college, but never in the little league game." He says it all out loud. And now everybody's embarrassed. On our end, they're embarrassed. But guess who's not embarrassed? The other side. The other side is still verbose. They're still talking back. They're still trying to instigate. Now, what happens, guys, when somebody starts acting like that and they're giving off that negative energy? We start getting into the action, right? Now, mea culpa, my fault, right? I'm already a very excitable individual, right? When it comes to athletics, I'm into these things, but I'm never offensive. I won't ever say bad words. I'll never ridicule or laugh up at the schadenfreude of the opponent. Never. I won't do that, because I know a lot of people are invested in the success of their fighters, their players, whatnot. These are families that put their children into these sports in order to keep them off the violent streets of Salinas, California. They're trying to make them fit, communal, responsible individuals. But because they also want them to win so that they can feel victorious in those pleasures that only come from being on top, they're also invested not only monetarily, but also with their time. So now I start cheering on our team, and everybody starts cheering on for their side, for the good and the bad. Nobody's stepping out of line, guys. Nobody's stepping out of line. But then here's what happens. Now, after the game is closer, and they're pitching again. The pitcher throws, and then he tells the ump, he screams something to him like, tell him to shut up. And what he meant by tell him to shut up is he meant tell the kids on our bench to be quiet when he's about to pitch. But you gotta understand one thing, that's right. When the pitcher is about to pitch, you're supposed to keep it quiet. It's almost like golf, right? They say 4, that means the ball's coming. They tell everybody to silence so the guy could just focus on his swing. The kid was right. He told the ump, tell him to be quiet, but he screamed it at him, like barking orders. That did not sit well with the ump. That did not sit well with our side. But it really developed a big clamor and commotion on their side because guess what? Their child, their player, had the right to talk back at the ump. The ump let it go, and we stayed silent. But when it was their turn to do that, man, the whole team would come out into the field and start jumping for every single score that they made. You're not supposed to do that. The only people that are supposed to be out there in the field are the players themselves. Any active participant is supposed to be at the field. Nobody's supposed to run out in the field for any run that takes place. But you can tell that the other side isn't educated and spoiled, and that because they are privileged individuals, they're used to getting their way, and because they've been dominant and they hadn't been in a competitive game like the one that we gave them, which eventually led to a 1-score deficit for us, so they won. They now started to reveal themselves. They were well-to-do individuals that displayed their privileges by their conduct, and it was rubbing off in their children. That's why they could talk down to an adult. And the parents, instead of chastising them and telling them to shut up and respect their elders, like I would tell my son, they were cheering them on and telling the ump, do your job. Well, negative energy begets negative energy. And they started to make fun of one of our pitchers when he was going through this slump of just throwing balls and balls. They were cheering and screaming, and yeah, you got him. He got nothing on you. He got nothing. He's just throwing balls. They actually said, just let him fly. Don't even swing at nothing. And guess what our pitcher did? He turned, pointed at all of them, stretched out his right hand. He flipped them the bird. He looked at every single one, and he waved from the left to the right, and he flipped everybody the bird. A 10-year-old kid. He got, of course, ejected, and he's benched. And on the way back, as we stopped to Taco Bell, I had to have a very serious conversation with my son. And I told him, we don't do none of the things that they do. We hold our head up high, and we are respectful, and we treat people with respect to show them that we are class. Unbecoming conduct from these parents begets the unbecoming conduct of their children. I hope God spares some harder lessons in real life, because the way that they behave with that disrespect, where I come from, we don't let that slide. Unbecoming. Canelo one of our greatest Mexican champions that's ever been, a shoe-in Hall of Famer, spoke to another one of our greatest Mexican American Chicano fighters that's ever been. And he said some words that are unbecoming of a fighter that should be respectful of not only their elders, but also a man that is partly responsible. And I say partly because a lot of that had to do with Canelo, because he's the one fighting. But he said some offensive things that, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you right here, where I come from, where my parents come from, you say that to another man, there would be deadly consequence. So I wanted to ask you guys, are we in a better place now, knowing that likely the fact that Canelo called Golden Boy a raunchy, promiscuous homosexual, that it will not lead to deadly consequence, because both of these guys are invested financially in the success of this fight, that they are in fact businessmen, that they will not in fact perpetuate physical violent harm against each other that may be culminating in final, like in the old days. Is that progress? Or do people need to understand and measure their words? Because there are still people that live with the sense that you should respect others and you should treat others like you would want them to treat you. I ask you, if somebody called you these words, how would you respond? Unbecoming, embarrassment for the sport. Mr. Vince Vargas says, Ryan keeps the money. Yep, nice. Crazy day in boxing. Ryan tests positive, and Oscar and Canelo also throw hands. Slap on the forehead, absolutely, the Mexican. Adi Medi says, so is Oscar's mental welfare getting to Canelo? Well, that's the thing though, Adi Medi. I don't think Oscar meant to get their Canelo skin. He's just always been. He lives rent-free in Canelo's head, and he's been like that for years. In fact, it must embarrass Canelo to have to deal with Golden Boy because he chose to fight Munguia instead of David Benavidez. Right? Because that's really why this fight is happening. He chose to defend his WBO belt consecutively, one after the other, when the next one up was supposed to be the WBC. He chose to defend the WBO again, even though he had already defended it the fight prior. All in order to get an easier fight against Jaime Munguia than he would have surely had at the hands of David Benavidez. That's the only reason why he's even doing business. It must embarrass him. It must be a cause of shame that he's having to get paid and share wealth with Oscar De La Hoya. Was the umpire Harvey Duck? Nah, Angel Hernandez. If you guys know who Angel Hernandez is, all you have to do is look at some YouTube or Instagram videos and just Angel Hernandez and I'm sure you'll know who it is. At Pachuco State's Warp Speed. Man, I'm sorry to hear about the situation getting so ugly. It's unfortunate. It was at Pachuco. It's an embarrassment. In fact, I ended up having to tone down my excitement, and I'm not lying to you. I had to get so close to where the batters were at to tell my kids, have fun out there. You got this. Where previously I would be screaming the same thing. This time I had to walk about a stone's throw from them and tell them that. I'm like the team mascot or something. I'm like the clown of the of the team. The pitcher should have been the batter, some chin music. Yeah, you know what? That's the thing, Mr. Vargas. Eventually, they will become adults. They might play in the, in the bigger leagues, maybe college, and then those kind of consequences, that type of retribution will take place. But I guess these individuals that think they are superior, they haven't yet been taught those hard lessons that the streets and the city can teach you. Addie May says, bro, I feel like I'm listening to a sermon. LOL, where's the offering basket? Take my money. Well, I'm just trying to inculcate some life lessons to see if you guys can relate to me. But I hope it never happens to you. And you might notice one thing about this broadcast, Daddy, that I tend to always point out my flaws and the fact that I am a piece of shit. Sorry about my curse words. In order for you guys to feel better about yourself. It's called self-deprecation. I don't mind pointing out my flaws and 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 the act of helping you guys move through this global sphere we call Earth in a more successful and happy way. Because I don't want you guys to live a type of life like me, where I could have been something, and I'm just trying to make something out of myself now. Oscar instigated to put some effing respect on my name. That's what triggered Canelo. And in fact, he also said, "Who's your daddy?" Yeah, it was crazy. Oscar created a hostile environment with his speech. Oscar knew what he was doing. Maybe he did, Eddie. And in fact, here's the thing, though. That was funny, Eddie. Now, hey, Mr. Vargas. Yeah, Eddie Medi, he is absolutely funny, man. He's funny. In fact, I don't know if you followed that comment. I posted something on the community page, Mr. Vargas. I finally today the Turkey Ali Sheikh Saudi Arabia promoted first U.S. based mega event in the city of Los Angeles, California. Terence Crawford, Ismail Madrimov, Pitbull Cruz, Rayo Venezuela, Tim Sue, Virgil Ortiz, Andy Cruz, Magdaleno, Abner Mares. All of these guys, the tickets just went on sale today, right? And then reality struck. The cheapest one was like $750. Now I was gonna buy 10 of them. That's like around $7,000, 7,500 bucks, and with taxes and then with the fees for buying online, it's probably gonna be another 350. So I'm looking at dishing out about 8,200 bucks. So I decided that if I'm gonna spend that money, I'm probably just gonna buy another old Chevy or Buick. But yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to watch it like the majority of the world, guys, through the comfort of my home, surrounded by my loved ones, while I cook some tri-tip and drink some jarritos. But yeah, Adi Medi came up with an incredible plan. He says, I'm gonna apply for the concession stand in order for him to get a job, and then he's gonna take his break right as Crawford steps into the ring to face off against Madrimov. And it's a genius idea. And I said, okay, well, now that you mention it, I'm gonna apply for a janitor job. But I decided not to because Saidi Medi says that then I would be taking his uncle's job, and I don't want to do that because his uncle is the janitor. Oh my God, he's hilarious. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to, just bring those things up to your attention, right? The fact that these things are below what a fighter like Canelo and a former fighter like Golden Boy are supposed to conduct themselves, right? At least in my opinion, it is. But I see that a lot of people are very interested in this fight all of a sudden. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been following the progress and the promotion of this here fight, even though it's been announced for over 2 months now, it really hasn't had any kind of promotion. No big public events. They haven't hit the strip. They haven't gone to New York. They haven't had a multi city tour in order to sell this fight. It's been quite bland and boring and uneventful. And all it takes was one fighter calling another fighter a bad word, and then all of a sudden the whole world, not only the world of boxing, but the whole world in general, is commenting about it. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact that Canelo called Golden Boy a raunchy, promiscuous homosexual is likely gonna lead to massive sales. And it has nothing to do with any kind of hostility between Jaime Munguia and Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan. In fact, right about now, Munguia is forgotten, right? So I'm gonna ask you guys something. Do we boxing fans care more about the chisme than the fights and the fighters themselves? Right? Are we more into the gossip? For those that don't know Spanish, chisme means gossip. Are we more into the gossip than the fights? Right? Because that's one thing that always happens. We always say this fighter and that fighter is not a good fight just because we don't know them. In fact, I said that Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia was only the most important fight to take place in the sport of boxing for the sake of the modern age, especially for the amateurs, just because there are incredible lessons that can be learned from that fight. The way that these two fighters' careers bifurcated. And that's not what sold the fight. It was the fact that although Ryan Garcia was undeserving a shot at a belt, the fight sold well because he was transitioning and coming out as a woman, because apparently he was sexually assaulted as a child, because there's people violating the most sacred, our children, in a pizza parlor, and because some crazy men and women worship an owl in the hidden woods of San Francisco. That's the reason why that fight sold that well. Not because we cared about Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney because it was the fight of the ages. Something like Rakimov versus Joe Cordina, or something like Lomachenko and Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko. No, it wasn't the best fighters in the world fighting against the best fighters in the world. No, it was one of the best fighters in the world fighting one of the weakest, most limited fighters of the world. But because there was shenanigans and gossip going on, it sold well. Eddie Medi, Mr. Vince Vargas, El Pachuco, the Mexican. Do we care about the fights, or do we care about the shenanigans around the fights more? You tell me. Eddie Medi says, yes, look at Tank and Floyd beef. Yeah, the quote unquote beef, right? Isn't that the one thing that always seems to happen? Tank and Floyd have some beef out of nowhere. When all of a sudden Tank is having a fight, all of a sudden Floyd Mayweather is being sequestered and kidnapped. Not until he pays back some debt that he owes these stockbrokers, crypto buyers, I don't know, a bunch of brouhaha that has nothing to do with fights taking place. Just gossip. Yeah, Like Floyd Mayweather is really being kidnapped. Like Tink really isn't giving a cut to Big Floyd. Come on now. Yeah, beef. That's as much beef as the beef that they put on those Taco Bell crunches that I was eating. That cardboard beef that I love so much. That I don't know. I guess people seem to get the runs every time they eat Taco Bell. Guys, I've never had the runs after eating Taco Bell. Just being honest with you. If you guys have had the runs after eating a couple of crunchies or burritos from the Bell, you let me know. But it's never happened to me. Maybe I just have a good digestive system. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to ponder that. Unbecoming was the conduct displayed by Canelo. Unbecoming a champion was the conduct displayed by Golden Boy unbecoming a champion. And what would you do? You guys haven't answered. What would you do if somebody called you a Mari? I won't say it. What would you do? Shakur Stevenson probably eats Taco Bell every day because that's all he do. Runs. Man, Medi, if you ever start a show, bro, it has to be a comedy show because you're a genius, man. I don't know where you get your jokes and your puns, but man, you're a legend. Man, I need you here. I need you here, man. I know I take this sport so seriously, but I need some kind of comic relief. So you're there, and I need every single one of you because you guys anchor me to different ways of looking at the world. El Pachuco, Mexican, Mr. Vince Vargas, unapologetically and always for our people. Mr. The Mexican, the big Mexican G, he stands by what he says, and that's firm. There is no flexibility there. He says he stands by his word. So does El Pachuco. I love that. You guys don't waver from your beliefs, and you guys always try to at least live by the righteous, most appropriate beliefs. So I have to respect that. Mr. Vince Vargas says the Twitter world and Instagram, people love to react more to the gossip and trash talking. Yup. Fans want to stand out and make the wisecracks or smart remarks to get others to react. Hey, are you trying to make fun of Adi Medi? Because he's the guy with the wisecracks and the smart remarks. I know that's yeah, no, you're right. You mean being a fake and trolls and just instigators. I feel you. I could never be that. I know a couple of channels that are like that. I could never be that. But I understand exactly where you're coming from. Arimeri says Canelo was just quoting the Transformers movie with there's a okay, yeah. Arimeri, because if you watch the Transformers movie in Spanish, the Decepticon is translated to come on, man, Decepticon. Oh my goodness. But Hugo says trash talk is not necessary. Respectful is a higher principle of life. En el boxeo se juega la vida y eso merece respeto. Y la neta, eso es la verdad. Hay muchos eventos boxísticos donde no se promueven solamente porque son peleas comunes y sin mucho lujo ni extravaganza, ¿verdad? Y esos fajadores se suben en el ring con su contrincante y no necesitan todo el espectáculo, no necesitan burlarse del otro, del prójimo y decirse malas palabras, porque ellos saben que la forma más expresiva en el boxeo viene siendo el puño. Lo que importa es callarle el hocico a tu oponente con tus puños. Los puños hablan más fuerte que las palabras. Por eso todos los líderes que han sido de los más poderosos no han sido militares del ejército disparando balas, no. Son los que tienen el bolígrafo para dar la orden a que otros vayan a atacar. Han sido los que escriben los libros como Napoleón y Machiavelli. Esos son los más poderosos, los que saben usar las manos y los puños para empoderarse. So I absolutely agree with El Pachuco. Boxing, you're gambling with your life. And because you are putting your life on the line, that is in and of itself the most respectful thing. And you don't need to belittle that respect with trash talk. I love it, El Pachuco. I hope, ah, Mexicans, so, man, okay. I hope everyone is practicing their push-ups. Ladies and gentlemen, start practicing because just in a matter of days, two of us are good. I'm not too sure if Mr. Vince Vargas, I don't think you are Mr. Vince Vargas, but the homie Ricky El Pachuco, the Mexican G, and your interlocutor Warp Speed have made a bet, and whoever loses is gonna do 100 push-ups, and we're gonna record it. And Arimedi, you haven't said nothing, man. If you want in on this, you let me know. Who do you think is gonna win, Munguia or Canelo? Whoever you pick, if you lose, you're gonna do 100 push-ups. So if you want to join in that, Arimedi, if you want to join in that, Mr. Vince Vargas, go for it. Give me your winner, and well, yeah, we'll be. I'm gonna be practicing my push-ups, the Mexican G. I have been doing that, but I will be forthcoming today. After about 6 months of not doing so, I ended up going mountain biking with my son, my 18-year-old, and this was my worst bike riding ever. There's this hill that's pretty steep and inclined. And when I haven't been on the bike for a while, it takes me 2, maybe 3 breaks where I stop to catch my breath and let my body cool down to then try again. And then after going biking more often, then those 3 stops reduces itself to 2, and then eventually reduces itself to 1, and then all of a sudden I'm able to clear that whole hump, right? Today, ladies and gentlemen, there was 4 stops. 4. I've never had to stop 4 times to get over this incline. I am out of shape, guys. But I promise you, I'm gonna do those 100 push-ups. Ain't nothing gonna stop me if I lose to Mexico G. You can hold me on that. I will do my 100. And I'll try and do as many as I can in a row. Hopefully 50. Arimedes is all good. With Ostarine, I'm thinking I can do 1,000, my guy. Hey. I see you've been hanging out with King Rai. The Mexican G laughs about it. Yeah, I know, because you're probably gonna not do them. You probably picked the right guy. El Pachuco says I need to start practicing just in case. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. Now, just to wrap it up, guys, I'm just gonna tell you something, right, about why I would never use the word that Canelo said to Golden Boy. When I was 18 years of age, my very first job was at Jack in the Box. I'm about to get my 90 push-ups in. I'll be back in a few minutes going for 100 tonight. Yep, it'll probably take you about 4 minutes because you've been busting out the Mexican G. And as soon as I wrap this up, best believe I'm doing mine. But I used to work at Jack in the Box for my very first job. Now, I've always been a very accepting individual, tolerant of people, just because, my hero was Martin Luther King. He fought for equality. He fought for us to overlook the color divide. He's a lot like another one of the people that I admire. Cesar Chavez, another one of our leaders. In fact, very similar. If you guys don't know about it, there's rumors that he was poisoned by a cartel of disgruntled farm owners. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is that I've never had any kind of hard feelings about gays and homosexuals and people like that, right? Because I grew up in punk rock, and I ended up reading a book as I was maybe a 13, 14-year-old kid that said how HIV/AIDS was really a biological weapon created by the US to try and kill off the homosexuals, the Hispanics, and the blacks and the drug users, right? And I really took a lot of credence into that. I think Alex Jones eventually ended up speaking something to that effect. But I ended up reading that from a magazine called Maximum Rock and Roll. So, long story short, when I started working at this place, there's this gay guy. His name is Rosendo, right? He just looked like a regular, typical Mexican. He wasn't flamboyant. He wasn't like that. He just was like a guy. But he was gay. And I may have told the story before. But anyways, one of the funniest things, I could never understand it, right? This big old black guy, big old tall black guy, muscular guy. He comes in, and this guy, I'm over here doing burgers, and he's frying fries or whatever, and then he just lets out like this big old like if he's eating some kind of like delicious food. And I'm like, what? And he's looking at that. He says, look at that black guy. And I'm like, yeah, so? And he's like, oh, I want one of those. And I was like, oh my God, get out of here, buddy. And I'm starting to laugh, right? Well, long story short, he didn't look like a gay individual. Just never really acted any different, right? But one day he starts ticking me off, right? Because this big order comes in. Huge order. Must have been like some kind of a school bus or something where they ordered like 70 burgers, right? So there's this big old order, and some of those burgers that they're ordering, they want special this, take out that, and I'm supposed to remember all of these things, right? And when something comes up like that, you're supposed to ask for help, and I did. And as I'm doing these things, I guess they must have thought that this was my moment to prove myself. And all of them just look at me like, what are you going to do about it? I'm not going to help you. And I say, Rosendo, help me. And he says, I'm not going to do it. Okay. So I have this very hard time, right? And I learned from that. And I'm like, okay, this guy's already on my SHIT list, right? And a couple of days passed, and I'm still feeling bad because obviously something wrong came out in that order, and I have to do it again. So I'm like fuming mad. So, a couple of days pass. And then this guy starts trying to like hit on me, like messing around or whatever. And I'm telling him, yo, stop, right? And he's being funny and playful or whatever. And I'm mad because, what happened a couple of days before. And I tell him to stop. And he's still going on. And I tell him, mira, pinche PUTO. If you keep on, I'm gonna, te voy a chingar, I'm gonna beat your ass. And I called him the PUTO word. Man, oh man, guys. This guy, his face turned, he turned like a devil. His face looked like a devil. His eyes became all slanted, angry. His brow just frowned. And he said, me and you, let's go outside. Me and you, let's go outside. And I said, yeah, we're going to go outside. Next break, right? As soon as we were going to go out of work, we were going to fight. Now, maybe I didn't tell you this part, but Rosendo, he was a black belt. I mean, I was just a regular street fighter, right? It had few, just one loss, really, guys. You won't believe it. One loss, but the loss that I took was a devastating one. I may have had a couple of close ones, maybe draws, 3 maybe, but every other fight that I must have had, maybe a total of 15, the majority of those were wins. But even I knew that I may be a street fighter. This guy, he goes to the gym. He's a black belt. And he was gay. Now, back then, guys, gays weren't defended or protected or nothing like that. They were a minority. They were pretty quiet, because they needed to survive. Well, anyways, I realized If I fought Rosendo, it was a lose-lose for me. Why? Because I was a man fighting somebody that the majority of people back then thought were lesser than a man, right? Because guess what? He's not into women. So that part right there is obviously lesser of a man, right? Now, if I beat him up, I wouldn't get much credit, and he was a minority. So now it would start looking like a bully. But you think those things are the ones that I was thinking about when I chose not to fight him? No, I chose not to fight him. Well, first off, a couple of that were slaps, right? So we started to like calm down, and I think he also realized, I may have gotten out of hand. But long story short, at the end of the day, we didn't fight. I said, look, I'll never call you that again, but I don't want you to ever mess with me like that. And he goes, okay, I won't do that. And we never had any issues. But do you know why I knew I couldn't fight that guy? Can you guys guess why I couldn't fight that guy? Think about it. It wasn't because he was lesser of a man. It wasn't because I was gonna get no credit, by being a bully. It was nothing like that. You guys wanna speculate why? Well, the reason I couldn't fight Rosendo was because if, God forbid, I lost to him, and there could have been a high likelihood that I would never have been able to live in Salinas, California. I would have been the only guy to forever be ridiculed for having been beaten up by a gay guy. Yeah, Arimedi says because you would have lost to a PUTO. Yeah. Yes, Arimedi, that's exactly right. I would never have been able to live it down. And all the people that I beat up, they would have been ashamed because they got beat up by me, and I got beat up by this gay guy. So the whole triangulation theory, even though it doesn't apply, or maybe they would have thought the opposite. See, you got lucky. I would have beaten you up because you got beat up by a gay, and I would have beaten you up so you got lucky. Warp speed. But I didn't fight that guy because my reputation was on the line. And if I lost to him, I wouldn't have a reputation. For many reasons, and more than many reasons, I chose to become the bigger man, to apologize, to say let's forgive and forget. But I chose to walk away from that fight. There was no winning for me on that fight. But it's okay. Many fighters have lost to Tank, so no shame. Yeah, absolutely. Right, Arimedi? A lot of people have lost to that guy, so it would have been the same thing. Mr. Vince Vargas says, Rosendo show unboxing if you have lost. Yeah, Rosendo show unboxing if you have lost. I know, right? I would have been Rosendo's BITCH show unboxing if I would have lost. Yeah. But here's the thing, guys. Golden Boy, if Golden Boy had fought or slapped or punched Canelo right there, it would have looked very bad in Canelo, because what he was accusing Golden Boy of being would have been the guy beating him. If Golden Boy is a raunchy, promiscuous, homosexual, getting beat up by that guy would have made Canelo an inferior man. He would have had no kind of respect, and he would have been discredited by having lost to that guy. And I'll ask you one thing. I actually think Oscar De La Hoya, had Golden Boy been in this era, or better yet, if Canelo had been fighting in the era of fighters like Bernard Hopkins, Tito Trinidad, Fernando Vargas, Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mayweather, Prime Manny Pacquiao, all those Shane Mosley. I mean, all of those guys. I would say Golden Boy would beat Canelo. Canelo would have gotten a couple of wins against some of those guys, but I assure you, at some of those weight classes, Golden Boy beats Canelo time and time again. In fact, there's one fighter that I know would have definitely beaten Canelo. That would have been Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins would have embarrassed Canelo. Mr. Vince Vargas says, "Oh, the Mexican G says, I'm back. I just did 100. It was torture." Yeah, better to pay off dividends, Mexican G. When you're all chiseled up looking at like Adonis, or Tizoc, you'll be all strong holding up your lady. Yeah, it'll pay off. When you go to the beach and all the chicks are checking you out and the guys are hating on you, it'll pay off. Mr. Vince Vargas says, I say you track him down, interview him on your show. Just kidding. I don't know what would have happened with that guy, Mr. Vince Vargas. That's 25 years or 26 years ago or so now. Who knows what would have happened to that guy? Back then, people still caught AIDS. I'm not too sure. I'm not trying to insinuate that he would have had it or caught it, but have you noticed that there's no such thing as HIV/AIDS anymore? Yeah. Mr. Vince Vargas says pound. And Natty Medi says this fight would definitely be an upset because Munguia is going to be upset he lost. Yeah. Always the Joker. But you have great quips and very clever, punny quips, Arimeri. Again, please live by the golden rule. Don't call another man anything offensive, lest they call you the same. Don't behave like some of our parents at the Little League game behaved. And hopefully, I don't have to do 100 push-ups on Sunday. The Mexican G says, my brother got HIV. He's a tecato. That's why I never mess with drugs. Yeah, and that's the thing, Mexican G. I'm lucky that that's the one thing that I never did right. Drugs with needles. I snorted cocaine. I snorted and even smoked methamphetamine. I huffed gas, marijuana, pills. What else? Hallucinogenics, mushrooms. But I just never messed with heroin. Never messed with the lady. And I'm glad that I didn't. But I do feel bad, the Mexican, that happened to your hermano. I hope that he has access to medicine, that he's changed his life since, and I hope for the sake of you and the happiness of your family that you guys did not suffer too much watching him likely destroy himself. Because man, that's a horrible life. Just barely escaped that life myself. Yeah, I apologize, the Mexican G. I wish your brother the best, and especially you, because we have to live with our consequences. We have to live with the repercussions of the mistakes that we've made. But you kept your nose clean. So people like you that are better than me deserve the acclaim, deserve the respect, and you get my respect, the Mexican, for keeping your nose clean, for never messing with drugs like myself. Man, that's horrible. Because it came out the closet is what Arimeri says. The Mexican Jesus, I'm not trying to talk down on him. It's just a fact. He messed up big time. No, I get it. That's the thing. The Mexican. Here's the thing with something like Chiva, right? With heron, is that all it takes is one time. That's it. And in fact, one of my friends used to do Chiva, but he never injected. He would smoke it. I didn't even know that was the thing, right? But he would smoke it. And he offered me once. And I said, nah, because I always was afraid of like, heroin. Even as a kid, I already knew how bad it was, how addictive it was. It was like the one thing that everybody should have been afraid of. And he would tell me, because I would ask him, what does it feel like? Because I've always been a curious individual. And maybe I was just trying to see whether or not I was going to try it myself. And he says, it feels like being completely drunk and completely full of happiness while it lasts. And I was like, well, I don't think I need that because I'm always happy and I'm always getting drunk. So I don't think I need that, especially the more addictive properties of it. But luckily, somehow, he never actually went into using hypodermic needles to inject himself. But man, I do hate knowing the fact that some of these narcotics have such powerful properties as to make men and women dancing slaves, men in a perpetual state of slumber and dream. And I really hope that your brother changes his life if he hasn't already. Yep, I always think about every choice you make. I will say I was fortunate enough to have a good father to keep me in line. And who knows, the Mexican? Is he your elder brother or is he younger brother? Because if he's your elder brother, maybe it was only not only your brother, but maybe the fact that you saw it, that he was the exemplar for you and what not to do. But if he's younger, yeah, man, that's unfortunate. I've always been able to. I've always been too broke to afford drugs, regardless. Yeah, Medi, but that's the thing. Remember what I said in the live on the Homie Ricky podcast just yesterday. Even when you're broke and nobody's working, somehow, when you're in that world, you still find a whole mound of drugs right there at the surface of the tabletop, ready for you to enjoy. I open up my Credit Karma and it says, NIGGA, you broke. Yeah, hey, if you open up your Credit Karma, that's a good step towards developing a good financial future. Keep it up, Medi. But I hope you get out of your brokenness. He's my older brother. We had different dads. Oh, okay. Yeah. Jeez. Man. Well, you know what, Mexican? He's suffering the consequences. And we choose the life we live because of those consequences, right? The actions that we take and the consequences that they purvey. Yeah, I agree with you, Mary. Big up to you, Mexican G, for keeping your nose clean. El Pachuco also wishes you well-being. He says, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Life is hard. Unfortunately, a lot of life's lessons are learned the hard way. I still can't come to terms with why life is like that. It's all experience, El Pachuco, you know. And I'll tell you one thing, guys. I am so lucky, so fortunate, right? Because I still say, I'm a piece of shit. I vali verga to some extent. But even though I still have some of the most perfect children in the world. My eldest, who's my daughter, who's 20, has never once said a bad word. She's very pacific and respectful. My eldest male son, who's 18, he's never said a bad word. None of them have ever gotten into a fight at school. My youngest has never said a bad word, never been in a fight at school. And I was the opposite. They've never done drugs. I've done the opposite. Sometimes I question whether there is such thing as karma, because karma is, you know, the philosophy of getting out what you put in. And I wonder if maybe as I was messing up and doing these things, if somewhere there as I was messing up, I still had some remorse, knowing that I was doing these bad things, so that I was just doing them not forcibly, but always with a sense that my consciousness knew it was bad. Because I know there's some people that live without even thinking about the kind of bad that they may be doing. They just accept it. And I don't think I ever could accept myself doing bad. And I hope that that's just enough karma for me to never have paid the consequence of bearing bad children. Because, like my mother says, si creas cuervos, te sacan los ojos. If you raise a bad seed, you know, and I don't know if there is karma, guys. Because if there is, I shouldn't have my family. Or maybe I'll just pay for that in the netherworld. But I pray La Virgencita, I pray Jesus, I pray the supreme beings, they spare me, because I'm really trying, guys. Really trying. The Mexican chief gives us thanks for the well wishes. Arimeri says, Pachuco, the wise man, 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely, Arimeri. See, we have great people, the wise men, the people that are living life, the opinionated, and the jesters. I'm glad I was square. Seeing my brother's downfall definitely scared me away from drugs. We can't change our past, carnal. It's about doing positive in the current moment. Arimeri says, you're a good man, Warp Speed. I try. Arimeri, I try. But I can assure you that everybody around me is better, including you guys. Prayers. Thanks. What you did for Scrappy Canelo Ramirez shows what kind of man you are. Caring, nurturing father. Thank you, Arimeri. I really do try. And maybe one day I'll meet you guys, maybe I won't. But I always mean this. The fact that you guys come here to reunite with me and to hear me blabber about what kind of stupid things happen in my life and the way that I'm trying to better understand them and interpret them, that says a lot about you guys. I am forever grateful that I have people like yourselves in my life. And I always mean this, guys. You may not believe it, but I am a very loving, caring individual. And when I say this, it is true. I love each and every one of you. And whenever I bid you adieu, like I bid you do well, I really mean that. So I hope you take that, the words of a stranger, telling you guys that he loves you. The Mexican chief says, don't dwell on the past, it only hurts. Just focus on doing positive moving forward. Yeah, that's what we could do to begin with. To the Mexican G, te deseo fuerzas en la vida, Mexican. Keep your nose clean, do right, like you've been doing, and I'm so happy for you. Eddie Meddy, man, never change, bro, never change. The day you change, you become a sourpuss, man, I don't think the show will continue to adhere to its high standards of hilarity. The and the Pachuco, He's one of our uh, most longest listeners, just like Mr. Vince Vargas. But El Pachuco, I think I've learned much more about boxing and boxing takes from El Pachuco, even though he doesn't have a show, than some of the people that I listen uh, to to basically understand the varied opinions of this favorite sport of mine, boxing. Mr. Vince Vargas, he's been there from day one. In fact, if Mr. Vince Vargas wasn't there about a year ago now, when we started at the Homie Ricky podcast, probably would have shut it off a long time ago, and I wouldn't be the happy individual that I am now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. Hey, I got to tell you guys that I love you. So that's awesome. I love saying that to people. Let's see. I think there was the last couple of moments. Group hug. I agree, Mr. Vargas. Group hug. Right? Who's cutting onions? Pinche suegra making tacos again this late at night. Hey, you're a lucky man. The Mexican G. I'm glad I found this channel. You seem to have a lot of wisdom. I tune in for more than just boxing talk. Yeah, no wisdom. Yeah, I guess maybe the mistakes that I am admitting is wisdom related, but wisdom, man, I have so much before I can say that I'm wise. Group hug is that things. High heels, are we happy to see me? I'm still learning. All you guys have way more knowledge. It's okay, Mr. Vince Vargas. You're still in what seems to be a moment where you love the sport of boxing so much, where you're not bitter and sour, right? One of the things that I detest more about having joined these communities of boxing is the fact that I am no longer innocent. I can no longer just see a fight and enjoy it without overthinking it. Right? I'm only overthinking things because I have to, because I can't just take things for what they are. I question every single thing because I sometimes question the life that I live. That's why I ask you guys more questions than I ever offer answers, because I question myself, because I'm an imbecile, because I'm a mistaken, failed man. But you live in a place where boxing is still an activity that you can enjoy without overthinking. That's why I never want to make it too political or too dismissive of these fighters or too disrespectful, because I want to enjoy that kind of mind state that I used to be in, Mr. Vargas, like you, where I could just take the sport for what it is, which is entertainment, instead of overthinking it and making it about the A side, B side, politics, corruption, and money making side of it, even though that is fun. And the only reason I even address these things is because I may have to when my son, if my son, when my son goes professional. But thank you very much for the varied opinions, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I agree. A group hug, it is. I love every single one of you, and I hope to reunite with you guys soon enough. The kid, by the way, that's sliding right there at home, he was out. Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are well of health and sane of mind. It's 2 a.m. over here. I have to wake up early to troll Devin Haney's IG. And Pachuco, best wishes to everyone on this great channel. I agree. I think we do have a great channel. I bid each and every one of you adieu. Engage.